links, and it also has. Thank you. It will have links to the documents you need. It has attachments. If you can't find something, you don't have it, just ask us, because that's our job. Whatever you need, let us know. You will also want to review DLD's annual report instructions. That's 53 pages long, but you'll want to review their instructions quickly. But as you're going to, anytime you have a question, flip to the question you're on and read the instructions about it, because they try to give you information to make it clear. You should review your annual report from last year. You should gather all the documents that were in the email that Pamela sent on January 30th. You should get the other documents you need from the JA intranet. Just everyone here, and you should ask us for help whenever you need it. Jump in anytime if I forget something. So why do we have to do this every year? If you've done it before, you hear this. Well, it's the law. You have to do it. And if you don't submit your annual report the first year, you will lose state funding. And after that, you could lose your registration for your library. So,
I think if you don't report for 2 years,
then you lose.
you can lose your charter and your registration.
So first year, no money. So we don't want that.
But if I could, another fantastic reason for doing the annual report is it's a great way to review the programs, the services, the financing, everything. It kind of forces you to take a look at those small details of your library.
Yeah, it goes by in a blur, and then suddenly you do the annual report and you say, wow, we did a lot. We're amazing. And helps everyone know what your year looked like. Okay, so this year, there are fewer major changes than some years, I think. In part one of the biggest changes is your population that you're chartered to serve has been updated based on the 2020 census. So we've been using the older census, so now that is populated in there. We'll talk later about what that could mean and why you want to check that number. We'll get into that later. In part three, there are new updated instructions for examples of synchronous and asynchronous programs. So they have a very nice chart in the instructions, a grid that I think is really helpful. So make sure you read those carefully, because the instructions are updated. For example, in question 3.29b, you are only counting your total views of asynchronous program presentations within 30 days. What did it use?
It was 7.
And now it's, hi there.
Hi.
And now it's 30 days. 2 questions were deleted, 3.19, 3.26. And there are 2 new questions added, which will auto-calculate. So you don't have to worry about those 2 new ones. They're going to total all your children's programs and your children's programs. Part 4, there's a new question about whether or not you charge fines. So it's a yes or no question. Do you charge overdue fines when materials are returned late?
So one thing to keep in mind too, as you go through the report, that these changes sometimes change the numbers on the report as you're, so if you have last year's report open, it might not be 3.19 is 3.19 this year.
Right.
It
So-
changes a couple of the numbering in the sections.
And that's a tip on here. So just some things to keep in mind. Like Pamela said, watch for renumbering from last year. Only one person can be logged into the report at a time. So if somebody else is helping you with it, don't both be in it at the same time. If you want to look at last year's, then have last year's printed out next year. Don't try to have them both rolling. Read your section headings and instructions carefully, because some of the questions are asking for fiscal year and some of them are asking for calendar year. So be very careful that you're answering based on the category they're looking for. Hit save every time you move to the next page, or your changes will be lost. When you are working on a page that has an auto calculation, you might put your numbers in and you're not seeing the calculation happen or update. You have to save it first. So don't worry, you've made a change and you're not seeing it. Once you hit save, it'll re-calculate for you. when you're printing your report, choose show web report. I think it still has the error that says something's not working on it.
It says that it's not gonna print a PDF, but you can print a
But it
PDF.
does. I don't know, I thought they were.
Yeah, it wouldn't let me yesterday, the day before, let me print it out.
Just ignore the error and just pretend like you didn't even see it and print PDF and you'll be able to.
Oh,
But
should
choose
be
to
able
show web report.
because I ended up printing out the web report.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's.
That's what you're gonna get.
The other one
It's
you
not
can't
like, I guess,
Oh, no, I printed out the PDF.
You
Yeah,
were
I
able
did the PDF the day before, but I couldn't get it
So they
yesterday.
fixed it, but the error's still there. I didn't have it. At least last time I looked at it. It
Okay.
said-
Okay.
And notes, there's a lot of places where you can add notes. And it will ask you, there are some times where it's gonna flag you right away that you need to add a note. And there's other places where you just know you need to add a note, because you know that it's going to be something that's gonna not jive with your results, with your answers last year. So anytime you have a large change from last year, you're gonna wanna add a note. Why is that? If there was no change from last year, you know, you had the exact same number of library visits this year. That's unusual, that would be exactly the same. It happens, there are times where something is the same, but you have to put a note in and say, strangely, it actually was the same this year, something. If it changes to or from a 0. And if a yes answer last year changed to a no this year, or vice versa, are all places where a no would be required. Any other places?
no, as far as the yes, no change from previous year, I just learned that, the minimum standards in 2021, a lot of answers. Some people answered no to minimum standards and they were later changed to yes, but the changes haven't happened in the report. So this year, if you're saying, last year you said, no, we didn't meet this minimum standard. This year, you're hopefully gonna put, yes, we are meeting that minimum standard, you're gonna need a no. So you may think that last year's was changed and updated, but it wasn't. Does that make sense?
Okay, so for trustees that didn't do any of the training and now this year you have to,
Right, say last year, you said we didn't participate in any programs, so you put no on that minimum standard. I had thought that we went in and changed those to yes. And the DLD said, don't worry about it, we'll do it. They didn't change it, so it still says, no, you didn't meet it in 2021. You're the reason why I found this out.
Okay,
really?
So it still says, no, you didn't meet it in 2021. The DLD told me, we trust that the system followed up with the libraries and that library is now meeting the minimum standard. Don't worry about it. This year, when you go to look at that minimum standard and you're like, yes, we are participating in programs, I'm gonna put yes, you might want to put a note that last year in 2021, you were participating in programs. This year, I'm saying, yes, we are participating in programs. So any revisions that I thought had happened last year didn't actually get done.
They happened in the world of the DLD's knowledge.
Yes.
But they didn't change the
The actual
your
2021
answers
report.
last year are as you submitted them.
Correct.
So when you print you can print your report, this is Argyle's report. You can print it with last year right next to it, which is helpful sometimes. So your answers last year, you might say, well, I talked to Pamela and we changed it, but it's still gonna have the old answer here. So just
Perfect.
pay attention.
but they know we changed. I
They
mean,
know.
technically, they
Yes.
know it was changed.
Yes.
So, okay,
Yeah.
But you still need to put it in the.
right, that we,
I would put it in a note because in 2021, it may still say no, and this year you're gonna put yes, so I would add a note to explain.
Yeah, after you submitted it. you did.
Because what happens with the minimum standards, and I probably do this later, but what happens is. As you're doing the report, it says as of December 31st, but the DLD actually says. If they've changed it since then, because now we're not going back and looking at these until May. The DLD says, well, if they've changed it since now, they're fine. But they don't go back and update the report like I
Right,
thought that they
right.
would.
which I think would make sense. I mean, how many did they really have to change? There could have been a lot,
Right,
but if you only have a handful, why not take care of it?
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So. Part 1, general library information. Some of this is, in this section is auto-populated, right? There are things in here that get
Mhm.
auto-populated, so some of that will be completed. We talked about that your population to serve has been updated. There are questions about, library budget and public vote. And if you had a vote in 2022, you're going to answer 1.46. If you had a vote in any previous year, you're going to put it in 1.47. And if you did have a vote in 2022, you're going to, this is how 1.46 works. 6A is your most recent prior year approved appropriation. 6B is the proposed increase in appropriation as a result of the vote that went out. And then 6C is the total proposed appropriation. And even if the vote was a no, you're still answering the question, because there's a place where you went out for a vote. Was it passed or not?
So the DLD came back last year with one note. There was a library that said question 1.42, help me with.
1.42?
Yeah, I should have made them out.
1.42 is. 1.42 is do all staff working in the budgeted librarian certified position reported in 6.4 have an active New York State Public Library certificate.
And they said the answer should be no based on the answer
If no, list the name and email of each staff.
in question 1.39, and they just wanted a no. So 1.39 New York State Library certification. So I think in this case, it probably changed and there wasn't a note, or they answered it incorrectly. I don't really want to spend a lot of
I don't
time on
know
that
either.
particular one.
I don't, that one. Part 2, this is a big part. This is your library
Do
collection.
you want to see if anybody has questions?
Oh, anybody have any questions on the first part? Part 1? Okay. So part 2, library collection, you're going to get the 3 documents listed here off the JA intranet. You've got your Polaris report instructions. That's going to tell you things like how many books in overdrive, tips for answering the questions. Then you're going to pull up your member library report explanation of content. This is going to explain each question, what material type it's talking about, and the item statistical code. This is the chart that will help you answer those questions. So grab those and have them. I mean, you end up having so much paper around you. You've got instructions and paper and remember that you're reporting your holdings, your additions, your subscriptions as of at the end of the fiscal year that you reported in part 1. So you're telling the report what your fiscal year is, and these are reported as of your fiscal year end. Uh, 2.9 are your total print serials, and that is a manual count of the volumes of the serials you have. Does everyone know the difference between volumes and issues?
Yeah, in the past, I've done, I mean, I'm pretty sure because I had Diana, a combination from last year, but I just want, could you go over it again?
On the catalog, or Jill, do you want to do this part? I know it's your favorite.
Sure. So a volume is the publisher's unit of that they determine the volume as a unit, and each volume will have however many issues the publisher decides to put out as part of that volume. So for example, Real Simple magazine, volume 25 might be 12 issues for the 12 months of the year. So what you need to do when you're doing your manual count is look inside the magazine in the fine print to see the volume number and the issue number and count all those 12 issues of Real Simple as one volume. So whatever unit of measurement, whether it's 12 issues or 5 issues, you're just counting the volumes. And it doesn't matter if they're bound together or not, you're only gonna count each volume as one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I even have
Okay.
from last volume not issued. Okay.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Question 2.10. You're gonna count all your other print materials, and that is a manual count of items that are not barcoded in Polaris, because your Polaris statistics are being provided to you. So if you have vertical file materials or anything uncatalogued, you know, local history collection, you don't catalog some of it, you're gonna have to count those manually. Two point one four. This is your local electronic collections. For those of you who don't have collections on your own, the answer is 2, because Sal's maintains 2 collections, Ancestry and Heritage Quest. So many of you will just put 2. If you have other electronic collections of your own, then you will add that to the number 2 that we tell you about. Additions to holdings sometimes confuses people. You're only reporting what you added. You're not reporting what you withdrew throughout the year. So there's a little logic check here. If you reported that you had 70 materials last year, and this year you say you have 100, then the amount that you added has to be 30 or more. It could be more because you're withdrawing at the same time, but the math has to add up that last year's number and this year's number. It has to show that you added in 2.27 a number that is that difference or larger. Does that make sense? Any, feedback on that?
So you're not reporting the physical number of books, you're reporting the change in your additions or in your holdings.
Yes.
Okay,
So if we
that's
would-
why that question is confusing.
I didn't think it was
'cause
the change. I thought it was just addition.
Well, it's, the change is 2.27.
It's not how much
Additions,
you add.
additions. How much did you add?
How many things did you add?
They just want to know. I had this many and I added this money
Okay.
and now I have this, but it can be more than that because you might have added 100, but you might have withdrawn on the back end.
Yeah.
They just, the math has to, you couldn't have a 70 to 100 and say you bought 2 things. That wouldn't make any sense. How would you have reached that new number? Okay. That's all I have on that section.
Oh, well, then
I have questions.
On this section?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Jill, yeah, see, I'll take you off the hook.
Jill and Jack, can you hear Jen?
Or Jackie.
Yeah.
Not-
All right, I'll take my mask off and breathe my lovely. So electronic books I have. 'Cause the instructions are super clear. But 2.17 and 2.18 makes no mention of Hoopla, or I'll say it, Freegal, and their directions. So are we only counting Overdrive? Or,
I don't think so. I think they just didn't put it in the, I think they just didn't list it there. That's mine.
Yeah, I think you
So-
still count those.
Thank you.
so we
This
should count
number.
the circulation like they gave in the directions for ebooks.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
What number was that?
So.
Well, I-
So 2.13 specifically says, if you have Hoopla or Freegal or other, you're gonna count. Your materials based on circulation. But then it doesn't have that specific information for 2.17 and 2.1.
Yeah. So last year, the way that worked was you actually count the entire collection then for audiobooks and video, streaming video. You count the whole collection, not the circ. I don't know why they make this different for them, but yeah, so you would count if you had 10,000 audiobooks in Hoopla, that's what you're putting there for because it's not going by circulation, it's going by the amount of the collection. For 2.17 and 2.18.
I did not do that last year, so I would have knew. And I'll
Yeah,
be
I
doing
have
that
I'll
this
try to
year.
know last year.
Yeah, I didn't do that last year.
I have a note here for Canopy, only count the number of plays.
Which would be, yeah, what served, because it's pay as you go.
Right.
Which is
But
what
I
they're
think-
asking.
Yeah, I think that was for ebooks, but then they make it different for audios.
For electronic collections.
So where do we find the
It's not
2027? Oh. So where do we find the?
5635,
Right, it's on this report
right.
for overdrive,
Yeah,
and then if you have additional like Hoopla.
we just added Hoopla, so we only used it for 1 month in 2022. So obviously I don't have a lot of data on that. So where do I,
You get it from Hoopla.
okay,
There's a report you can run.
okay. I may ask for help when we get to that point, then.
And that's a question that I will follow up and confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it says video, is it any video that the library has done and downloaded like to YouTube? Can you count those?
Nobody's ever asked that before. Well,
Jill, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I don't know about YouTube if you count that content or not.
we don't own it.
Because that's freely available in the public domain. So I feel like you don't count that as a collection if we were to read the instructions carefully.
Okay, because we ended up putting it on our webpage for people to access to.
What kind of, is it a video the library made?
Yes. We've done 3 of them.
I don't know.
I will ask.
Okay. One was on the school, one was on the training, one was on the pottery.
Okay. Good question.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have a question about, Newsbank. Does anybody have Newsbank on their website? Is that something that would be counted?
I think that probably gets counted as an electronic collection.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I've never counted it before, and it occurred to me yesterday. I was like, huh, I wonder why I've never counted Newsbank. We've had it a couple of years. I was like, oopsie. Okay,
Yeah, I do think you would count that as one collection.
and that would be with like Ancestry and that,
Seriously?
That's where I would think it goes.
okay.
You agree,
How
Pam?
many people went to
Yeah,
the website?
I think, it's the same type of thing. Zal's provides the other 2 and you have that on your own. So that's a third one to add.
Okay, so that would be like Ancestry, Heritage Quest, and Newsbank. Okay,
Yes, we'll say yes right now, but we can confirm it.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Can I just
Okay.
ask a question about the web stats?
Yes,
When I'm looking at them, I mean, I was yay for those 2 libraries where one went up 148%, another one went up 53%, another one went up 143%. And it's like, how can that be?
that's the JA folks that grab those statistics. I know there was a year where I was reporting and the numbers seemed strange to me, but there are anomalies that can get in there, I was told. Like if someone was trying to get into your website a lot and was hitting it, it's gonna reflect that.
This is also comparing 2022 to 2021, and some libraries may have still been closed in 2021.
I'm sure that's why mine went up that much. It's because we were closed for most of the time.
Yeah, I look at all your web stats every month and I keep track of how many failed login attempts. And some libraries get 10,000 hacking attempts a month. So the visitation numbers would reflect the people trying to also break into your website. And so if there's a
that's what I-
huge difference between that and you have to make a note, just let me know and I can give you the verbiage you need if your library had a huge change in website visits.
Mine was 11%. I mean, it wasn't horrid, but I'm looking at these other libraries, it's like.
140.
Yeah, that's
Wow,
exactly.
you know?
exactly what I
Somebody
remember.
desperately wants to hack my website.
Okay. Thank you.
So Jack can get you the verbiage. If any of you have libraries that the number is very high, that's a place to add a note.
Jack, can you send me that verbiage? Because I know I need it.
Sure, Faith, I'll send it to you.
Any other questions on part 2?
Part 3, programs, policies, and services. So Pamela, if there's any, we had a couple of ones, but this is where you're gonna report your library visits. And you do not include curbside visits. So don't include them. Some questions, as listed here, are based on fiscal year, and other questions are based on calendar year. Pay attention to what they're asking for and give them the numbers based on the span that they're looking for in those questions. Summer reading programs. You may feel like you're counting things multiple times because there's a summer reading section, there's an early literacy section, there's an adult literacy section, there's digital literacy, and something may be both early literacy and summer reading, and you're gonna put it in both, and you think, well, I can't count it. But you can count it in both because they're not, the DLD is looking for each of those in entirety. So if it counts as one, it counts as another. In this area right here, 3.32 through 3.53.
So we don't do the reading program because I don't have the same children every week. So we just do story time, and that's how I put it in as programs. But I don't think that would be considered early literacy. I have never done it that way before.
Well, the
but
early
I'm-
literacy has specific age
okay.
requirements on it,
Okay,
that
then it's.
it's
yeah.
birth through age 5, isn't that?
Well, that could be story time, but I could have up to 8, you know, I mean, it's
Right.
not geared just toward. Little, I mean, it's,
Well, one of the, later on, there's a question or there's a point that we make that if it's intended for multiple ages, you pick the age that it was mostly intended for. I think they say it more eloquently than that, but
okay.
Or attended. Jack, do you have any thoughts on that question?
So Carolyn, I'm sorry, I was busy doing something else. But you don't have a summer reading program, but you do have, story time would count as early literacy program. So you would count that as an early literacy program.
Okay.
take and makes can be confusing. They are counted as a one-on-one session. And the way you would count it is just, it's the same as it was last year. If you gave 30 take and makes, then you had 30 sessions. And each person was an attendee, so 30 sessions, 30 attendees.
Okay,
Does that make sense? You don't say, I made one craft and I gave it to 30 people. Each person doing it is their own program. So the numbers match, 30 sessions, 30 attendees. You don't count programs that had 0 attendance. You don't count your staff and volunteers for at a program. And here's the, if different age groups attend, report stats based on your intended primary audience. Any feedback on that?
Yeah, from the DLD, I think it's mostly just checks and balances, like. A library might have put that they had 0 library visits, but then they reported that they had attendance. At a one-on-one, it has to kind of make sense. So question 3.31 in summer reading. The DLD said that it needed to be at least 1 because they probably reported a program. With attendance somewhere else, but then the library recorded 0. Under summer reading, so I guess it's just making sure that your numbers jive. But there wasn't a lot of feedback from the DLD on that one.
So-
Colleen, there was a question in the chat that I just
Okay.
saw. It was what, I think it was something you might have already covered, but Gwen was asking if she should count Newsbank in question in 4.13.
No, I was, someone had asked where they were
Oh.
counting it, so I was just sharing where I put it. So if that's wrong, is that the correct spot?
In 4 point,
Newspaper.
Yeah, under databases.
Elections.
we were putting it in electronic collections. Which is
Okay, so
2.14 through 2.16. It's 2.14. Where were you putting it?
well, I can't, never mind. Sorry, I think I got everybody off topic. I apologize. I count it as, I don't know, I'm looking at my spreadsheet, so I've got it, the actual searches are in 4.13, but I count it as just a number of that we have it in the others, in the other one. So,
Yes, right.
think-
It's
I think
one
that's right.
collection.
Right, that's- yeah.
Part 2, yeah, and we'll get to part 4 very shortly.
Yep, I think she's right.
But part 4 is transactions. So one is collection, one is transactions. So that makes sense that the activity gets counted in 4. The collection gets counted in part 2. Does that make sense?
yes,
Thank you. So I mentioned that there's this handy dandy chart now for tips for reporting live programs. And this is new this year.
This is new, so
think it's very
they must
handy.
have had a lot of questions on synchronous versus asynchronous programming last year.
And
Because they included this chart with the major changes. Not that these are changes, I think it's just a clearer explanation of what to count.
because it often is very specific that you're including live programs. Where is the part that says you're not counting something you recorded and are showing later. You're counting live programs. So this whole part here is gonna help you figure out what to include and exclude, but you may still come upon something and ask us, and we might know, or we ask DLD, because we ask for clarification frequently. We get new questions, or it doesn't fit into something. So make sure you read through this chart.
Where is that chart again?
It's,
It's on your major changes.
Okay,
That
I
was,
have that.
they put it, it's in your major changes, and I think they even put it in the,
it's also.
it's also in the 53-page document that New York State provides. So it's in the big 53-page thing, and it's in the major changes. So
Okay,
really-
because that is much more explanatory than it was last year.
Yes, this is a great
Yes.
chart. Do I know every fact that's in this chart? But when you ask me, I'll read that part. Just to figure it out. It's a lot. And then more. There's a specific exclusion here about take and make kits that are not part of a synchronous program. Report take and make kits that are left out for patrons to pick up under question 3.22. One-on-one program sessions and question 3.29. I mean, it's very clear, and I think that's going to be very helpful this year.
That's reported on the end of their fiscal year.
Okay, any other part 3 type of questions? Programs, policies, and services.
I do, Colleen. Can you tell me again, I saw it quick. It says, don't count staff and volunteers as
Yes.
part of programming.
Right, so if you have a program and your friends come in to help run the program, and there are 5 friends in the room, friends of the library, and you have 2 of your library staff, you're not counting them as people who attended the program.
Can you count the presenter?
No, I do not think so.
I don't think so.
No, because they're often, they often are a volunteer if they're doing this. So no, don't count that. Count the people that arrived to attend the program.
So just the audience.
Yes.
I know, really, I mean, I had 5 teenagers come and help me for a program. You know what I'm saying?
But
They
they're
didn't want the program, they volunteered to help. To get your student council hours in, no,
but they're not who you put the program on for. So no
It
count.
sounds like they're self-presenting to themselves, but, I mean, I see what she's saying, though. If they are also attending the program, I
Yeah.
would count them as attendees.
That was a program, right, that they wanted to go, but they thought they would help, right? It's.
yeah.
While they were there.
They
Yeah.
came to help set up and then they
Because-
actually sat and watched
Because it
the
was a program
program.
that would have been,
Is the program for that age
Yeah.
group?
Yes,
Because if they
Yeah.
came and helped you at story time,
no,
I
no,
would
no,
say
it was
no.
for a wildlife program.
okay,
So yes, they came and helped set up chairs and all that.
and then they
yes.
attended also.
Then they
Right.
sat and
Well, I
watched.
would count them in the attendee portion, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Beforehand, this other stuff happened. If they left after you were set up, then no.
No, they didn't leave.
But if
because
they
had
then
to get
go
their
and sit in the
hours.
seats with the other attendees, then they're attendees.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I'd say yes.
all right. To know.
How would you count story walk?
Oh, that's a good one.
Story walks aren't counted.
What? Really?
Is that counted as a program?
Oh, no, that's not true. You have to have a way of counting attendees, so. If you've counted or found a way to count attendees to your story walk, then you can count them.
Okay.
So some libraries put a bucket of rocks at the beginning of the story walk and ask the participants to pick up a rock and put it at the bucket at the end of the story walk, and then later come and count the rocks. You have to have some way, or they take a picture of themselves and post it on the library's website or Instagram. You have to have some way of counting them. If you're not counting the participants, you can't.
Okay, but which section do we put it under?
Aren't they,
Program.
Jack, do you know?
is it or one-on-one? I can't remember. This question came up last year and I can't remember. Jack, do you remember?
No, I don't remember, but I can look it up.
Well,
Okay, thanks.
very good question.
So for the one-on-one program sessions, that's the amount of tape makes that we handed out.
Yes.
Yep.
The make and takes are your number, and then that's your attendance number, because,
Right. because these
Yeah.
ones- right.
yeah. Okay. Part 4, library transactions. Again, the JA intranet is where you're gonna get the same documents that we referred to in part 2. You use them before to count your stuff. Now you're gonna count your activity of the stuff, your transaction. That's all I have for that.
Nothing from the DLD on
Nothing
that
on that.
either. The library rocked it last year.
We don't have anything on that. Let's see, if I have anything. No, I literally. Guess everyone does great on that section.
Are there any questions on part 4?
No, but can we go back to 3 just for 1 second?
Yeah.
3.21, number of synchronous in-person on-site program sessions, that should be the same as 3.21, right? Because if they were all on-site, then they should match. 3.21 is the automatically filled in number once you
Yeah.
filled everything else in. And if I didn't have any off-site program sessions, the number in 3.21 should match 3.21. Am I correct? Or am
I believe so.
Wrong.
3.21
Is the autofill.
is, that's an autofill?
Yeah, and then 3.21A
Oh, yeah.
should match if I didn't have any off-site sessions.
Number of synchronous program sessions, and then number of synchronous in-person
On-site.
on-site. And if that's all you had, then it would match, yes.
Okay, good. Just
Yeah,
making sure.
yes.
Okay,
And if you,
sorry about that.
and if you had a little, if you had some of each, then
You would
that's
split
the
that.
total, it would total up. Yes,
Right.
you're right.
I have a question as well about 4.12, use of electronic materials. Freeding changed their model in the middle of the year, so we have download and streaming, but they give us two separate reports, so they're actually asking, should I be adding those two counts together and count it as one, even though it's kind of different?
They changed, so they were counting it how in the beginning?
So last year, Freegal was downloads only. So we could just, check out how many people downloaded. This year, they added streaming to the platform. So we get a report of the number of people who downloaded and the number of people who streamed, but I don't know if that fits in the same category together, if I just add those two numbers together.
And they stopped counting, they didn't add another metric. You're saying they stopped counting downloads? And
No,
now
they're doing both. So I just want to make sure that that's, like, it almost doubles the number, because it seems like, from what I can tell, the same people who are downloading are, in addition, they're also streaming as well, because you can do that on the service. So am I adding the streaming number and the download number to my Freegal?
My gut reaction is that's double counting. But I'm
wondering if it goes in 4.13, which is successful retrieval of electronic information.
right. but
That's why I
one of
wasn't, yeah, I think, I wasn't sure, like, if it actually, like, moved, or if I split it, like, put one in 4.13 and then put the downloads in, like, 4.12. So I wasn't.
Well, so as you see, question 4.12 specifically says to count Overdrive, reading and Hoopla circulation. I don't know.
But if it's streaming, is it counted as circ? I guess that's where. Because it doesn't have a borrowing time, like where Hoopla, you can stream it, but it's got a limited borrowing time. So that's, even though streaming just sort of, I don't know. So I just really was not sure.
And Freegal has no borrowing time? It's not.
Well, you
that's not-
you can stream like 3 hours a day. So you can download, I forget how many downloads we have. So in whatever the period, I think you can do 3 downloads a week, but you can stream 3 hours a day. So it's not really like something borrowed, technically.
Gwen, is it like the binge pass in Hoopla where I just kind of personally ignore it because I don't know what that counts?
We could do that. Yeah, I mean, it just like that one, like that changed, the middle of last year, they started offering the streaming, so.
Number, they haven't downloaded. I think we're gonna have to ask Wielding.
Yep, I've got it written
Yeah.
down.
Okay, thank you.
We'll
You're
let
welcome.
you know what they say.
Okay, thank you.
Impossible to know it all. Okay. Part 5 is technology and telecommunications. If JA hosts your library's website, then you're going to use the web stats report. And this is the section that you would report that. We talked about that. Any feedback there? Have the
Nope.
notes?
5 is good.
Part 6, staff information. This you are reporting as of the last day of your fiscal year. So your staffing on December 31st is what you're reporting. Lots of things happen during the year, but that's the day they're picking. So on that day, what's your staffing like? You count all budgeted positions, even if it's vacant. If you have a spot and a line and it's vacant, you still say that is a staff position you have. You need to report in FTE, so you're gonna convert your part-time hours to full-time hours. And on the email that we sent you, there's a calculator that you can use. And this little chart to the left shows how you would do that. You need to use what you consider as full-time though. So this example is showing where 40 hours is considered full-time. Sal's is 35. Your library might be different. So whatever your full-time is, that's the number you're you're using to calculate it. And if you have trouble with it, just give us a call.
And in your email, I sent the FTE calculator. Pretty simple to use, but it is Excel. But if you need help with it, let us know.
And the second example you can see is when there's a 35-hour work week. It is is considered your full time. When it comes to the questions about director or managers, it's one or the other. You can't have a director and a manager, it's one or the other. And there are two different questions. You say yes if it's filled in 6.2, if it's vacant, then you're gonna answer in 6.3. That's a really great.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just to clarify, if I had a staff member that left the week before the year was out, I would report that as a vacant position?
Yes, on that day, it's vacant, but it's still a position, yes. I know that's,
Based on your fiscal year.
yeah. Right, I'm using December 31st because that's our fiscal, yes. Any other questions about staff?
And all we had from the DLD on that was either or. A library director or a library manager. And remember notes if anything's changed.
Yes.
Can you talk about the difference between a director and a manager?
A director is a certified librarian with a
Okay.
master's degree,
Okay,
and the manager is not certified.
but you don't, it doesn't have anything to do with the New York State Public Librarian certificate, it's the masters.
Maybe I misspoke on that one.
I really hope you didn't, because.
Let me, that just came out of my brain somewhere, but
Yeah.
let's look at it before I. Where's her? Process. Positions counted in this series require a New York State Public Library certificate. That's what they're asking about.
So I'm not actually a director, is what you're.
You can use the word, but in this
Correct.
circumstance.
The way they use it is library director is certified, or the librarian can be certified, because they're librarian questions too. But positions counted in that require a New York State Public Library certificate. And to get that, you have
So
to
I
have a
should
master's
be
degree.
librarian, not library director?
Library manager.
You're a library manager, not certified. You do not hold a New York State Public Librarian certificate, so
No.
then you put yourself as a library manager.
Okay, but that's, okay.
You can call yourself.
I call
Yeah.
myself a director,
Yeah, I mean, you
yeah,
are, you are.
yeah.
Because some libraries are required to have that position, and
Right.
so they're looking to make sure if you're required as a minimum standard, then you better be saying yes here. Oh, so much fun. Minimum standards. They're looking to see whether you met minimum standards as of December 31st, 2022, that specific date. And you want to do this section?
Sure, so,
Let's see it.
not really, but I will. So minimum standards, the bylaws, the long range plan of service, report to the community, written policies and budget. All of those should be current and posted on your website. As of December 31st, if you posted them since then. As you're doing the report, you can put yes, it's done.
So we're talking about the budget for 2023? Or the budget for just?
No, you should have 2022 should be on your website for reporting year of 2022.
Okay,
Minimum weekly hours open.
This is one of the ones, just to jump in, the minimum weekly hours open. If your census, if your 2020 census changed your population that you serve, you want to make sure that you're still meeting the minimum hours based on that new population, because the change could push you into another category.
So the link that's on this website also brings you to what the minimum standards are based on your population that your library is serving. And it also affects your minimum weekly hours open. Oh, sorry, I'm not, it also affects your paid director.
Right.
If they have to have a master's or,
The public
A
library
bachelor.
certificate.
Yeah.
Public library
Um,
certificate.
no, I think it,
You think that one says?
yeah, it's based on master's certificate. Or is that hours? You're looking at it.
I have it in my hand right here. Yeah, this is.
Where's my? Here we go.
Paid director in accordance with the provisions of Commissioners Regulation 90.8. That's what it tells you.
So the minimum standards are what might initiate a variance for your library. It's not a bad thing. A variance is just, we didn't meet this minimum standard. This is why, this is the plan to fix it. This is when we're gonna have it done. And we send that report to the DLD and we move on. If it doesn't get rectified and you keep reporting it year after year after year after year, eventually the DLD is gonna say, hey, what's up? So we do get a lot of feedback regarding variances on minimum standards.
And the instructions from New York State has the little chart right here. Again, with the population and your minimum weekly hours.
I wanted to say, like, public restrooms, as long as there is a public restroom available for your patrons to use, then yes, you've got public restrooms. Everybody should have adequate power infrastructure. Currently. Training, any on-the-job training of office equipment. If you have any new employees or staff coming in, they're gonna get some sort of training. So it doesn't have to be formal. You did 2 hours on this webinar and you recorded it and you got your certificate. It can also include on-the-job training and partnerships. Remember to include schools, clubs, and organizations for collaborations with partnerships. Does anybody have questions on minimum standards? We had that one. Was a section where we had the DLD questioned a lot of them, only solely based on your answers. If you put no on any minimum standard, they questioned it. And then we had to further research, make sure that you had everything posted on your website, talk to you about were you really not open, do you really not have power infrastructure? And that's where I believed that we would be able to change the answers on your 2021 report, but they haven't actually been changed. So if you said no last year, your report is still going to reflect no. But this year, hopefully you'll be able to say, yes, we're meeting that minimum standard. Good. Everything's set. Yeah.
Part 8. Your minimum weekly total hours. You would exclude extensive hours you were closed to the public due to natural disasters or other events. Straightforward. Your annual total hours. If your library is providing curbside services only, and the building is not open for people to come in, then they are not counted as open hours in this question.
I'm just curious from the people that are in here, how many libraries still had limited or curbside in 2022? Or were you guys fully open?
We were fully open, but if somebody wanted curbside,
Right.
I have no problem.
Right, but you
Yeah,
were fully open.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this part should be really easy
Yeah.
this year. That's what I'm hoping.
In part 8, the COVID questions, there are 9, and just read the definitions carefully. They're pretty straightforward. If you have questions, let us know. Part 9 is your service outlet. There are, speaking of the COVID part, there are very extensive explanations for each of those questions. So the service outlet information is part 9. You are going to report this information as of the end of the fiscal year you reported in part 1. If you don't have multiple outlets, question 9.15 here should match question 8.13. These are those checks and balances that Pamela was saying, these things, if they're not, they don't match, then it's gonna get flagged. 9.16 plus 9.16A has to equal 52 weeks, because there are 52 weeks in the year, and it says how much were you open? So if you say 50, then you were closed the other two, and that goes in 9.16A. There's a 9.16B that you would put that you were limited occupancy, limited capacity. So you're open, but if you were limiting at some point, then you would put that there. You're open, but it's a further explanation of the open that you were. 9.17 is if you have a meeting space for public use. Your upload and download speeds are reported in 9.29, 9.30, and there is a URL here that you can do that in your library. 9.33 are your wireless sessions that come from the Meraki. And that is supplied by JA. Well, no, I think it comes automatically every month from
Mhm.
them. But if you lost the email, computer support can help you. Visit your local library. That's a good one. Good ones.
He's lying. He says he's really hard, Cheddar.
I'm actually.
Oh,
jeez. Oh, part 10, so much fun.
Oh, 10.
Yes.
I get excited about 10.
Glad you did.
This is the part that's always a headache.
Yes.
Every single year.
We might have a way to actually make it easier for you. So there has been in the past a way to click where it says, click here and download an Excel spreadsheet. And what that does is it downloads your answers from last year. It downloads all of your trustees.
Yeah.
You should have an entry for every seat on your board, even if it's vacant, should be there. So if you take that, if you download it, click there, take that spreadsheet and just update the trustees that are now new, like George left, Sally came in, just overwrite George with Sally and all of Sally's information, and then send it to Collect Connect. They're gonna upload it to your 2022 report.
Somehow I don't trust that.
It's going to be
Way easier, I'm telling you.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing to do. If you don't want to do this and you're not comfortable with it. But that's gonna give you apples to apples. So Mary is president in 2021, Mary's president in 2022, and it's each seat is going to match last year. One of the biggest problems is that our librarians or whoever's doing the report reinvents the entire wheel and they put everybody in all over again and the dates start getting changed. And as the beginning dates and end dates start to get changed, the DLD flags every single one of them. It was the number one biggest problem of the report was the trustees last year.
I think part of the problem was the way that it had been done the few years before I came, and then our trustees voted to change their term from 5 years to 3 years. And we did go through the official change, but I had to explain to them, no, somebody has to fulfill that 5-year term. New terms are 3 years, but anyone who's already here, has, so it's been a headache.
If you choose to data entry everything and not attempt the Excel thing, which I haven't seen anybody do this, so I guess I'm curious to
open.
see if it works well.
I'm
So if
open.
anybody wants to be a guinea pig and give it a try, please
I
do.
can try it.
So, I mean, it's.
So what
you
you
couldn't
want
That's I only have 5.
what you want to do is print out the report from last year and make sure that Mary is still in the same spot that Mary was last year. Don't enter Mary first last year and Mary last this year, and they're all over the place, and try to get everything to match up as much as you can to last year.
So I have one trustee that did come on in 22. She took a different, she came on and one other person resigned. But the person who came on in January is for this year coming. So I don't have to worry. That other person would still have been the same for 22.
Well, it's as of February 20 something.
23?
February
And that's
1st.
staff
Oh.
for 10
Right?
So the people that were on for part of 2022, but are not on anymore, don't get listed at all.
Don't list
Just
them.
Whoever your
Oh.
current trustees are.
As of
February.
As of
February
1st.
1st,
Okay.
2023.
Okay.
As of
So
February
who,
1st.
there are people, I mean, they may have been on it last year,
Yeah.
but let's say I don't know, they came on board and something happened, they left. They'll never make it if they were somewhere in between, but you have to put a note for any change. So if someone new appears, like Sally, you make a note saying they, especially, well, partial terms.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Make
go
a
into
note
that.
about why that is.
So this is an example of what the Excel spreadsheet might look like. It'll have all of your trustees that were reported last year. And you'll just update this as little as possible.
And well, is that embedded right in the document? Right in the-
It is embedded right in the report where that arrow and that circle says here. You click on that and you'll download it right to your computer and then save it and email it.
Why
Hey,
is
Pamela,
Excel.
Yes, Jack.
there's a question in the chat from Susan at Indian Lake. She said she just downloaded the spreadsheet, but it's the 2020 info and outdated. So I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
2020,
Is she
Yeah.
in the?
in the 2022 report, for sure.
That was my
Susan,
question.
are you definitely in the 2022 report? You didn't accidentally open the 2021, did you?
Yes, she's in the 2022 report, and Gwen said she had the same problem too.
Yeah, I don't recognize any of
But
them.
maybe it's a problem with DLD.
Yes, we
Okay.
will,
Can you write that on the?
yes.
So as of February 1st, we're just putting in all of our trustees that are current,
Yes.
correct?
Yep,
Okay.
would be awesome. So last year,
He was right to be suspicious.
I get very optimistic.
the range of trustees, 10.3, 10.7, and 10.8. The range of trustees, the trustee term length, and the board member selection should all be what is stated in your charter. And the DLD is looking at your charter and comparing it to the answers that you're putting in your New York State report. They will question that if they don't match.
And board members can't just arbitrarily change the terms. You have to do an official change to your charter.
Correct.
These are the
Besides,
things I've learned in 2.5 years.
besides Indian Lake, who was the other library that saw the same thing?
Jack.
Me.
Oh, Jennifer, Saratoga.
Yes,
Spreadsheet,
okay,
yes.
the spreadsheet. Well, just because maybe it's not everybody, I want to tell them
Okay.
specifically which libraries.
So what if you're in the point right now where we're changing our trustees from 7 to 5 and we just printed out the application to get it changed and we have to mail in the $60.
I think that'll be in next year's report.
Right,
That'll be in next year's. Okay,
because it's as of,
And you're gonna have to put
February
a
1st.
note on every single trustee next year stating that they approved and your charter's been updated and,
okay,
but you have to worry about that next year.
okay.
So term beginning and end dates typically don't change. If the board approved a change, you can add a note.
It's a long drive.
There were dozens of those. So trustees finishing early resignations. So if you have a trustee that's finishing out a term for somebody else, the end date of the term shouldn't change. They're gonna have a new beginning date. So say they came on in April and they're finishing somebody's term that ended in June. The beginning date is gonna be April, but the end date is still gonna be the previous trustee's original end date.
and that's where you add a note saying this person is fulfilling the term of Joe, Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo's not on there anymore, but you're still gonna say they were finishing that person's term.
So the 3 notes for new trustees finishing a term. The new trustee should have the same term dates as the trustee they have replaced. Add a note, as Colleen just said, with the name of the previous trustee, beginning and end dates of their term. And the third thing is the answer should be no. Is the trustee serving a full term? They are not, they're completing somebody else's term. Trustees that have ever served in the past should not be reported as a new trustee Add a note if they're a returning trustee. So say they haven't served on the board for 2 years and they're coming back, they're not a new trustee. Term begin and end dates should include month and year. So we must have had some reports where just the year was entered, but not the month. Do not list any trustees that have resigned. Talked about that earlier. Do include a record for vacant seats and answer all of the questions as NA. Oath dates, they had multiple comments that the trustees of a public library are required to file their oath date of office within 30 days of the appointment. So they're looking at those. And libraries should work with their systems and their regional liaisons to have the terms adjusted to start in the same month and end in the same month going forward. So everybody on your board, at each seat, each term should begin and end in the same month. So they should all maybe begin in January and end in December. There shouldn't be any variance there, except for when you have a new trustee coming on in the middle of the year for your beginning date, but each seat should have the same beginning month and month end, beginning month and month end, yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No.
Pamela, there was a question in the chat.
Okay.
Sarah at Stillwater wanted to know, what if they only have 1 year and must run at the next election?
They only have 1 year and they must run at the next election. So it sounds like they're completing somebody else's term. And then at the next election, they're gonna get voted in for another full term. I would only report on the term that they're completing.
Right, you're reporting at one moment in time. On February 1st, if they are serving, their end date is gonna, when is their term gonna end? You put the normal end date in,
Yep.
but the beginning will be different because they're serving a short amount. So it does sound to me like they're replacing someone. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that answered their question.
They'll reach out too. Thank you.
Okay.
I might get.
So on here, right here, where it says trustee begin. Where are my
year.
months? Right here. So here's the begin months. So each seat on this board began in January and should end in December. These two trustees came on during the middle of a term, so they're finishing somebody else's. So you might see different months in the beginning, but all of the end dates should be in the same month, should be December. And
Okay, why wouldn't it go January to January?
it usually goes like January 1st to December 31st. Or you may, it's usually from the beginning of a month to an end of a month.
Right, because we just did our two that were voted back in. For
Okay, so
January.
I think I know what you're asking. If it's January to December, if you have a January to December term, like in this one, it's January to December. But if they're voted in May, it goes May to May. I'm not gonna be able to explain that during this, this session.
Okay.
Because we're August.
August
Unless-
to August.
yeah.
More a question of if the annual meeting is in January, do we officially not have a board between December 31st and the date of that meeting?
No, no, I don't think so.
Because so their term.
They
am I-
have a
am I-
board member
are you-
until they vote.
So their term ends on January 25th and starts on January 25th, but that's
Right.
not really what we need to
Oh.
say here.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So we just say December and January.
To make it easier on.
I don't know that, I think you say what, this is an example of a particular library that uses this. I think you report on what your terms are. This is
The
this,
bylaws.
yeah, this is just this library. Everybody's
Who
not
are the
doing
board
January, December,
members
whatever,
between
whenever you
December
elect.
31st?
So our
What's Thorn
bylaws
Hills
say,
again?
yeah.
July. So theirs is
May.
July,
July 1st to June 30th.
Right.
And ours
it's not May to May, it's the first date of July, July 1 through June 30th. That's this library.
Okay.
But we actually vote
Because we do.
at the
June.
last meeting of June, but the terms start July
Right.
1st.
It's approved, but the term starts. What what do your bylaws say about your term? That's what you're using.
We vote in January. So
But what does it say?
in our bylaws, it says we vote in January.
Not the vote, it says, when do they take office? What does it say in there?
January first of whatever year that they're
Yeah,
joining.
January first, so that's January,
Okay, so it would still end.
December
December
31st.
Okay,
December 31st.
gotcha, okay.
Another comment that the DLD comes, if you notice, this particular big library has 5 trustees that are going to terms that are gonna end in 2018 and 4 that are gonna end in 2019. That's not ideal. That means you've got almost half your board is brand new. So they would like you to work with this, with your system in adjusting that, and Sal's literally just did that for our board. We had a very similar situation. So the trustees voted, we had one trustee that is gonna resign a year earlier than anticipated, and another one that's staying on an extra year so that we could stagger better,
And you just need to have a vote and approve that,
right?
and then you'll add notes.
And then if you have new trustees, they should be marked as new over here. We went over that.
And those two also say no, because they're serving a partial term. You mentioned that.
Yep.
Okay.
Jack, are there any other questions in chat?
Not at the moment. You're all good.
How's that?
You did get that spreadsheet to download, and the people that are on there, some are not even alive any longer.
Yes.
So they're definitely not trustees.
So I'm definitely
It's
gonna
really-
reach out to the DLD.
It's
about
really
that.
old information. It's not correct.
Mine, I did the same. They're all
So,
good.
don't anybody use that Excel sheet
Not
for
to derail the conversation, but
You could use it. You could use it and type everybody in fresh. You could still do it that
At
way.
least you
And
know
It's still
where they
easier
want
to me in Excel and then email it, but it takes away the beauty of it. But we'll get the right one.
they'll get it all sorted out.
Yeah.
But it explains
You know-
why. It's walking in.
I wonder if they were because none of our libraries updated them when they did the 2021 report, they're probably full of old information. Way, way.
It looks like it's like,
Way back.
you know,
Way
well,
back.
But I'm guessing if you
Dates
used them this year and
2019,
updated it, that next year, when you upload it again, you're probably gonna get 2022 information.
Well, we'll find out. I don't know. I feel like it should be 2021. We'll find out.
I know,
But
I agree
still,
with you, but I think that's what's happening.
but that's a good theory, though, is if we use the spreadsheet, update the spreadsheet and upload that, then next year it should.
Yes,
make
have
your
the
life
right
easier.
To
information.
me, the
Yeah.
spreadsheet is, I like Excel, and if you want to use it, but you're nervous in Excel, then call one of us. We'll help you.
Can we go to the trustees once again?
Yep, we're still, yep.
Okay. Not in regards to the year ending or whatever, but it has the automatic fill-in on, let's say trustee education.
Mhm.
So. There was one meeting, and I think it's coming up again for the trustees, where it says 2 people weren't there, and they were, it's an automatic fill-in, but they were there. So it was, on mine, it was James Donahue
One
and
record,
Kate Hunston.
these trustees. Not.
But yeah, it's not an fill-in, no, but they did.
I'm
They
not
were-
sure that it's an automatic fill
Mine's got it filled in,
from last year.
no, for this year.
Yeah, mine are filled in too.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
do this part yet, and it looks like anybody who did some sort of training on, I know that these people did do training. That are marked yes.
I'd have to
So
go.
did somebody,
Who did, yeah, how do they know what you
Mine
know?
looks like the same answers I had last year. Mine matched from last year.
Well, because there was 4 of us, but it would only take one name, so in the chat, we put in all of our names. As we were sharing one computer at the library. I had asked Sarah, she's like, Sarah said, yes, you count all of them. But yeah, it's not showing, it's only showing, you know, 1 board member and not the other 2.
I'll look into it.
Yeah, because trustee education, right?
Yes,
You're supposed to
yeah,
have
yeah.
one record for each person serving
Yeah,
as of December 31st.
and then we asked her about it when she visited us in October on a
Yeah.
Zoom meeting.
I don't think that should be an auto filling.
I don't either, I don't.
It is, and then the other one
It is?
was
Yeah. it's- I think
automatically
some-
What's it
filled
coming
in
from?
And how do they
for,
know the answer? They know. And
um,
also the trustee education is as of December 31st,
right,
but remember, you're reporting your board as of February 1st.
I will look into that.
Just remember that. Just remember the dates. Just follow what the date they say.
Ooh, okay,
And we'll have to find out why it's pre-filled.
So any new trustee, for anyone who starts July first, they're gonna have to do continuing education in the last half of the year.
yes.
Yeah.
But it's only 2 hours.
I know, I'm just saying, they need to know this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pulling Yeah. teeth with my board, yeah, and it's only 2 hours. but
Yeah.
sure, come on.
Oh, no, they're fine with it.
It's just they,
Yeah.
we need to be cognizant of it, to do it between July and December.
Yes, yes.
So when they're asking the question about whether or not they've completed trustee education, are they wanting them to have the 2 hours or if they've completed any trustee education in the year?
Oh, yeah, I have never had questions on the.
What does the question actually say?
Okay.
Let's see. 7. Trustee education, complete one record. It's just a yes or no. It's a yes or
Okay.
no.
So
Has the
it's-
trustee participated in trustee education last calendar year?
Okay,
Yes or no?
Yes.
Trustee education includes training, workshops, seminars, and conferences.
Okay,
So you were just saying yes or no?
all right, and like strategic planning sessions, does that count as trustee education? No, training on how to do strategic planning?
A workshop on how to do it.
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
Sitting down to do it, no.
I don't know.
Any in-person or online
do that.
instruction on powers, functions, duties, and organization of the library board. Yeah,
so if it's automatic fill, then it's going to stop me.
I know. we'll
I know, I
have to ask
don't like
about
that it's
it.
automatic.
Okay, and it's the same way with, if you go back to our, I think it's minimum standards. That was, I had automatic fill on mine as well.
Well, and the other thing about trustee education is they say that it's trustees as of December 31st,
Right.
2022, not as of February 1st, 2023.
Right.
Right,
Just-
yes. They did it in September. We all did it
Yeah,
together. I looked in as they were doing it.
one
so.
record for each person serving as of December 31st. And should be the other one based on those dates, just read the dates.
Good
But
question.
we're
Why it's
going,
auto-filled,
but we are going as of February 1st, even though it says,
Yes,
No,
ma'am, I
this
know.
question
They're
is
automatic.
education.
Education is as of December.
And you're listing the people who were serving as trustee on December 31st,
okay.
Yes.
each person. But the other, when you're gonna list them all,
Mhm.
that is as of February 1st. So there can be a difference.
Okay,
If if
Yes.
things change in January for you, you might have, your education proof is here, but your board listing
mhm.
is different. That can be. Oh, so much fun. Part 11 and part 12 are opposite sides of the coin. You've got your operating and your disbursements. And everything has to match up. So 11, these 11.1, 3, 5, 7, you are reporting your funding that you received from SALS, which comes through to New York State. And you have a document attached to your email that shows any payments that SALS made to you. So those are the questions there. At the end of it, you're going to 11.25, you're gonna show your balance in your operating fund. Your balance in your operating fund, which is beginning, is gonna match your ending number from last year. Nothing should have happened between those 2 days. You ended and you started. If something happens and the number is different because you figured out there was an accounting error or anything like that, you're gonna have to add a note. Because if you ended with $1,000, you're gonna begin this year with $1,000. And then the final question, yeah, that's the one we just talked about, that's operating. Now, what?
The biggest thing from the DLD
Oh, yeah.
on that was if you add or enter an amount for other cash grants, other state aid, other receipts, you need a note for any of those other items. They want to know what it was.
Right. Then on the other side of the coin, part 12 is your operating fund disbursements. There's a couple notes here. 12.7 is your electronic material expenditures. You're going to include the funds you paid to Sal's for overdrive that we invoice you for. You might have others, but that's where you're going to put the overdrive funds. 12.26 is where you're going to put your JA fees. That's a contract with your public library system, so add up your JA fees. And 12.41 is very important, it goes all the way back to the very beginning on the to-do list. This is where you're going to enter the date that your board approved this annual report.
So my board treasurer does the whole 11 on. So should I just, I know I've got his information and gave it to him, but should I print out? I usually have to come to you guys because, you know, sometimes they'll do it and if it's changed from last year and then there's a mix, but should I print, because this is all from the right here in the instructions, correct? This is what we're going over or no? I mean, this is,
This PowerPoint is based on the
Oh.
New York State instructions.
okay. So do we have a,
You will get a copy of the
Okay, we will.
slideshow.
okay,
Yeah, we will send you the slideshow. So
Okay.
if you want to give him the slideshow.
yeah,
And he should have everything we said you should have that is pertaining to the parts he's doing, yeah.
yeah,
You know, you can give him this whole document, you can give him our FAQ.
which is, okay,
Well, this is the New York State document. On the email we sent you, here's our FAQ, which
Okay.
includes some
I
tips.
got that,
Most of the tips that are mentioned here are on this verbal, but some
right,
people.
that's what I give,
Yeah.
yeah, I give
Yeah.
him a sec, but
Yeah.
I think I'll add a few other things
Yeah.
that you, yeah, okay,
And definitely share this one.
yeah,
So this is. For me, this all makes sense to me when I have real numbers, but this is what you're doing, this is what you're explaining in parts 11 and 12. You're explaining the cash you received during the fiscal year. Did you transfer money from any other accounts? How much cash did you have at the beginning of the year? And that's the total. I got this much, I had this much, now I have this much. And then on the other side, how much cash did you pay out during the fiscal year? Did you transfer to other accounts? And what's left at the end of the fiscal year? And that's going to be the total of your disbursements. And here is a little example of it. So you got $15,000, you had 1,000 at the end of the year, 16,000. On the other side, you paid out 14,000, you have 2,000 equals 16,000. You see, it's a parallel, it has to match. So if that, it won't let you submit if you can't get it to match. And people did have questions about problems with it, where they couldn't figure out why they weren't matching. And then Pamela would look at their financials and sort of go through it with a fine tooth comb and say, it looks like this is off. But it has to match. Correct. Anything else there?
No,
Just if it's not working for you, call us, because that's like a specific, everybody's case is specific to their finances that year.
this is one of those things that you can't figure out until you sit down and really look at it.
Yeah,
Now, you had said 12.26 is where we're gonna put our JA fees that we had paid out. But on this one, it says capital purpose loans.
Yes, so the JA numbers are off by 1
all right, and is that,
Oops, sorry.
on your Polaris report.
Yes,
I think that might be what you're seeing. So on the Polaris report, it's 2.27, but on the annual report, it's 2.26.
wait a minute,
2.26, because.
it's 12.25,
12.25.
it's 12.225.
Okay,
I'm in the wrong section.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
We will fix that before we send it out.
Okay.
12.25, next slide. And then suggested improvements, there's a final question that is required. You cannot leave it blank. You either have to offer a constructive suggestion, not this thing stinks, I can't stand it, no. Something, I like that new chart you added with the live programming explanations, or you just write none. You don't have any suggestions. And if you have any suggestions that you would like to share with us about problem you had in a question, we can pass that on to DLD. And if you can give us a specific, this question tripped me up, we can refer it to them. If there's anything that we can do better to help you throughout the process, you get all done and you thought, I really did not understand this section at all when I went to the annual report party, or these puns really drive me crazy. No, don't say that. No,
It's a
anything.
Sparkly shirt for me.
What's that?
It's a sparkly shirt for me.
I mean, I hope you like that sparkly shirt, not that you don't like the sparkly shirt. No, really. That's how we improve and we can pass it on to DLD. We're the go-between. So this is our second year doing it. And our second year helping you do it, and our second year doing the Sal's library system, because we have to do our own annual report too. So the feedback is useful. And we appreciate it.
Are there any questions? Jack, do you have anything in the chat?
Nope, there's nothing in the chat.
Okay.
I have a question. So
Okay.
Colleen, you mentioned the census and I think you said something about it was autofill. And
Yes.
I thought you said you were gonna come back to it.
Right, it's auto-filled, and when you need to keep it in mind when you are reporting the minimum standards, because your population, if it changed in a way that puts you in a different category of required minimum hours, or whether you need a certified director, those are two minimum standards that are based on your population. So just be sure that if your population changed a lot, you look at the cutoff for those particular minimum standards.
Okay. I looked up the census on census.gov and the census that I found was higher than what is autofilled in the report.
Well, they're putting specifically the population you're chartered to serve. So I
Yeah,
don't know what census.
yeah, I looked up the town of Easton also. And it was higher, but not by much, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Is there any, is your population that you're chartered to serve not the exact town boundaries?
I have no idea.
I mean, that would be in your charter. Your charters, yeah, I mean, number one, I would just check to see what your charter describes as your chartered population to serve. For example, in Burnt Hills, Ballston Spa is outside of the town of Ballston, and Ballston Spa has their own library. So the charter explains the exact part. If it does seem to you that it is supposed to match, shoot me an email, because I'm kind of curious myself why it would be different.
Okay,
So yeah, shoot me an email, and take a look at your charter exact explanation for what your population is, and then let me know if it still doesn't seem right. We'll find out.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Again. Under additions to holdings, 227, all other print materials. And it says to add your serials there, anything that has not been barcoded. Why do they want to know what we've added that isn't barcoded? Just curious.
Because it's part of your collection. You might have a you might have a vertical file that people use, and you didn't bother to catalog it because maybe they're small things and you haven't had the time to catalog it. You still get to say that's part of my collection,
Okay.
but it's not in Polaris.
To me, it always looks like, why do they want to know that when it's not barcoded? Because I know it's there. And unless somebody else came in and, browsed through it, no one else outside of my library would know that it's there.
Right, not from Polaris, no, but you might have it on your website. You might
Okay.
say, we've got a great local history collection, come in and see it, but maybe you haven't barcoded it.
Okay,
You should, because then the whole world would know. But sometimes it's, the example they use is a vertical file, so it's often. There's things that are.
well, I'm thinking yearbooks, we don't have, our yearbooks, they're
They're
not
not barcoded?
barcoded, you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
but you
So
can
that's-
count that,
That, I counted them before.
yeah,
But I'm thinking, unless I put them on the website to let people know, so yeah.
But
they
you-
would know there.
But if you count them before, you don't count them the same. They've already been counted,
They've already
right?
been
So
counted.
you don't
They
go
say
into
that
each
same
year and
number.
say, we got, right, you don't go,
right. You
this year, say I had 10. And then I put that year that there were unbar, and
Yeah.
then that next year, it still would be 10 because we haven't added to it, or it would be 0 because we haven't added to it.
It's
Which
not-
one?
Right,
Right, if you're in the additions part, yes.
yeah, I couldn't understand why they always
Yeah.
ask that.
Well,
Okay.
it's a full, you're telling the state, you're telling DLD. How much stuff that you have, how much materials you have, how many materials, and it is real materials that are
Right.
benefiting your patrons.
Okay,
And so you do get to count them,
okay.
but even though they're not in the catalog.
Yeah.
It's a full picture of what you.
And we did, we counted the pamphlets, we counted everything last time. I'm thinking, why? They don't know that.
Yeah.
It's not there, so, okay.
But you know,
But now I know, yeah, we can throw it into special collections on our website. And just,
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions in chat and there aren't any more questions from our online attendees,
I have another question. So we did the farm to library program this year for the first time. Does that get counted as a
That's-
program?
it does not. That's actually the one, when somebody asked about the story walk, that I misspoke. It's the farm to library program that is not counted.
That it's not counted. Okay, all right.
can you, is that,
it's overwhelming.
is that a part?
Last year, it was a weekly program. We counted one a week and we counted the people who picked up food, and we were told that by Erica last year. And we talked about it during the annual report last year.
But I don't think there was anywhere to put it in the annual report.
The general
Program.
program.
General program.
I think it should be counted personally.
We,
Counting it.
That's what I kind of did. I counted it as
For the
once a
program.
week, and then I kind of averaged the attendance.
I think it should be, but I specifically remember asking the DLD and she said, oh, that's fantastic, but no, that doesn't, we don't have anywhere for them to put that on the annual report.
But
Maybe that would be something at the end that we should
Yeah.
ask them to do, right? That could be
I did
a
it.
question that, or
They're telling us.
I'm not changing
I'm
my
not
spreadsheet.
opposed to putting it in there.
This is a
But it
good
does-
point to mention that if you don't count it in the report to DLD, you definitely should count it in the report to your community. And if anybody needs help with an infographic for that, I would be glad to help them. But that is definitely something you'd want to put in your report to your community.
I think sometimes also things change. We're counting things this way, we're counting things this way. We did actually used to count something differently. Anyways, we can always reach out to DLD and say,
I can ask them
more
again.
of our libraries are doing this.
Yeah.
It's a big thing that they're doing.
The more we ask, the more
You know,
likely they are.
if
to
they
have
say
it.
no, we'll tell you they say no, but as Jack said, you report to the community, but. If they hear from us, gee, we have a lot of libraries and this is a really big deal. Isn't there a place we can have? Maybe eventually they will allow it, story walks or something that you can count, if you can count your attendees, Pamela says. So
I'm gonna add it
we
to
can
my
check
follow-up
it. Yeah,
with the DLD.
I counted my story walks.
yeah. Well, if you can.
Story walks, yes.
If you can count the attendance.
I misspoke on that one.
Okay.
But you have to have a way to count.
You have to have a way to count
Promise.
them.
Well, we gave away anybody that did the complete story walk, then they, we took a picture as they
Yeah,
went around.
perfect.
And then they all got a free coupon for caramel corn. So we knew how many caramel corn tickets we had, so we went by that count.
Speaking of story walk, Sal's added 2 to the Lenning Library. We have Over and Under the Snow and the Gruffalo.
Over and
Gruffalo.
Under the Snow is on display at Lake George now for Winter Carnival.
Yay.
It's
Nice.
a big hit. It was a little challenging getting it to stay out
The
in
snow?
the weather, but my assistant is a rock star. She figured out some concoction with kitty litter and socks, and she's
Oh,
got
wow.
it tied.
Wow.
She wanted to use something that would be usable after, so.
Yes, I'd love to
She's
see
like, I need
pictures.
kitty litter, so she put it in socks and she's got it tied to the metal post
Oh
and,
my gosh.
and it hasn't moved since she put it in.
So we plan to keep adding more storybooks to the collection.
That, it's been a big hit, and what, the question I got from, people was, what are you going to do next? I'm like, just enjoy this first. Enjoy this first, but I think it would be so fun to have them up for like library week
Yeah.
and kick off for summer reading and stuff, so.
If you ever do it and you want to share, I have a couple that I've done. It's just, we always did ours as a map as well. So it gave you where you need, a clue basically is where you needed to go to the next one, but somebody could just take that piece of paper off and put their own, whatever they want
That's
on
really
it.
cool, yeah.
So I think it'd be
Love
nice
it.
just to share it. It leaves it less expense for each
Mhm.
library and to buy. We always bought the 2 books because you had to take them apart. You can photocopy it, but then I was afraid of the copyright law, whatever, so we bought them and. took
Yeah,
them
there's
apart.
a wonderful webinar, but so for now, we're gonna, Jack, you can go ahead and stop recording. We're gonna leave the owl on. So anybody that is online wants to work on the report, if you come up with questions, we're available to help you. Maybe we can